Welcome back into Foolish Club Media. I am Steven Serda, and it's a big week for the Kansas City Chiefs. We finally got some real action Saturday night, preseason game 1 against the Arizona Cardinals. So I am very happy to be joined by my good friend, the editor-in-chief of ArrowheadPride.com, Pete Sweeney. Swain, what's happening?
Yes.
We got football on Saturday.
I know, that's exciting. I think we get into training camp and it is a process where you wait for the pads. Like they practice in shells and shorts, and then the pads come on. You're like, okay, this is cool, and then it gets boring. And then you wait. Okay, I'm ready for the first preseason game. And I think we're at that point now. We want to see what the Chiefs can do against another team in another uniform. Although the Cardinals uniforms of all the uniforms in the NFL are kind of the closest to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me laugh when it's like, oh yeah, players in a different uniform. But yeah, it'll be nice to see the Chiefs actually be able to hit. And I think it's important, like Patrick Mahomes says every year, it's important to get hit and just to kind of get that out of your system. And so a little bit of both coming on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm excited. Now, preseason week 1, I know a lot's been made this week about the Chiefs' initial depth chart and like what we can read into that, which in my opinion is absolutely nothing.
Right.
But the things we can read into are what we've been seeing on the practice field for the Kansas City Chiefs. And you mentioned this on the Arrowhead Pride editor show, and I really hadn't thought about it. Is this like god awful turf in Arizona? And I totally forgot about that their field is just absolute garbage. And so now I'm even more like, after Hollywood Brown gets injured in the preseason last year, like now I'm even more heading into Saturday like, we probably just don't need to play the starters. I know Andy's like, oh, they're going to play a quarter, but they're going to get one drive tops, and I don't even really want to see that anymore.
I think the big thing for me is like the whole story of Josh Simmons and coming off the injury. And then right now there are lingering injuries, like guys recovering a little bit. And it makes me wonder like how much a Jawan Taylor gets. I mean, he had a knee surgery, knee cleanup process this offseason, and it does seem like they've been limiting snaps in camp. And you think about the Trent McDuffie injury and the Harrison Butker injury with this awful turf and how they played a Super Bowl and everyone was complaining about that. And so I wonder if there are some turf related lineup decisions. I think that's possible just because of where they're playing on Saturday.
Yeah. And I think, going into preseason week 1, like I think the biggest thing I'm going to be paying attention to in this one, and Patrick Mahomes isn't going to play more than a series. Like Travis Kelce, if he plays at all, probably get a few snaps. Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, I do not expect to play after, missing this week of practice and being a little bit banged up. And then Xavier Worthy, who's having a tremendous camp, like might be the most important pass catcher for the Chiefs, at least early in the season, once we inevitably get this Rashee Rice suspension. So it's like, I don't think you need to see anybody in this one. It's much more about the rookies. And then I think it's the biggest offseason storyline for the Kansas City Chiefs is this offensive line, where I'm like, do we need to see a good amount of Josh Simmons to make sure he's ready and good to go for like live game action where guys are coming at him? And then I don't think Jawan Taylor will probably get much look, but Jalen Moore, who's rotating to right tackle and looks like he's at the very least going to be just the backup there and the swing tackle and maybe play some guard or whatever. And then Kingsley, like, I think it's really important to get these guys reps at those positions. So I am wondering if maybe we see a little bit more of them on Saturday than we would actually think, like heading into their first preseason game.
Yeah, I think it's very big for the rookies, and I think but an extension of that is some of the bubble players that we're looking at. Like I think Carson Steele is a veteran on the bubble, Sky Moore, Joshua Williams, Malik Herring, guys that have been here for a couple years, but now there are younger players pushing for their 53-man roster positions. You mentioned the offensive line. This is weird to say, Steve, but I've been at camp every day. I have way fewer questions about Josh Simmons already than I do Kingsley Suamataia. I think for me, it's like you look across the line, and obviously Creed is a wall. Omar Norman said that 100 times during his presser. Trey Smith is Trey Smith. They made him the highest paid guard for a reason. I think Jawan Taylor, although sometimes he takes his lumps, is a starting caliber, slightly above average caliber right tackle in the NFL, even though Jalen Moore's been rotating with him. Josh Simmons has looked the part in training camp. The personnel staff has kind of been on the field, and you could just tell like they always want to be around where Simmons is. You know, if they have two drills going on at the same time, they'd rather be watching the one-on-one DL than 7-on-7. As dazzling as Pat can be, this is the development of camp, and so I just expect that to happen in the preseason. And I think for me, it's Josh Simmons looks like the man. I think the bigger question is Kingsley going to look as good, or at least better than he did at left tackle last year?
And we looked this up. Brandon Kiley had this on this week's episode of Show MBK. And, heading into their first preseason game last year, it was Kingsley was the left tackle. Like he had won the job basically through that part of training camp and then started the season as a regular left tackle. But in the first preseason game, they treated him like he was just that. Like he was a legitimate starter who played like 6 snaps in their first preseason game. And then like he just wasn't getting enough run in the preseason because it seemed like they believed like he could be enough there heading into the season. And obviously we know that he just simply wasn't. So it's like, I just think they really need to get these guys reps. And I know Jalen Moore is a veteran at this point, but he's a veteran who hasn't really played a ton as a backup offensive lineman for the 49ers. But moving over to right tackle, whereas last season he was filling in at left tackle for Trent Williams, like it's just really important to get these guys some time meshing together too, because especially at the guard position for Kingsley, like it's really important that he trusts the guys next to him and feels comfortable doing that.
The Kingsley stuff is it's still strange to me, Steve. I mean, I know he was able to play week 18 at left guard, and I know that he's been playing left guard the entire camp and off season and OTAs and whatnot. But I mean, he's just locked in as the starter. And people will be like, well, Jalen Moore has mostly been a tackle. Kingsley's played one game as a guard. I mean, he was a tackle. And so I don't know. I found it kind of strange. Like we've seen more rotate with Kingsley, I think 1 or 2 practices. It's mostly been rotating with Jawan Taylor at right tackle. And I just wonder, and like no one is rooting for this, right? I think everyone hopes that Kingsley's the answer. But I just wonder if you have this game on Saturday and Kingsley struggles, do we see that shift? Do we see when we get to camp back on Monday after they fly back, is more now rotating with Kingsley if he struggles and Jawan Taylor, if he plays again with the turf thing, does he look good? I just think the offensive line maybe, and almost it's becoming sneaky. I think sneakily a little bit more fluid right now than last year. I think if Kingsley were to struggle, maybe you'd see more of more, pun intended, when we do get back to camp.
And I think the other thing that Chiefs fans are going to be really interested in is this wide receiver room. And now it's not great that Hollywood Brown has missed several practices now after suffering an ankle injury that was initially reported like, oh, it doesn't seem to be that serious. He should be back on the field here pretty quick. And now it has been the better part of like 2 weeks, it feels like, since he has practiced. And for a player that's had injury problems in the past, like obviously we want to see what he can bring to the table in this offense. And then Albert Breer reported that the Chiefs are bracing for anywhere in like a 4 to 6 game suspension for Rashee Rice. I'm assuming it's going to be 6 or above just because of the severity of the charges. And so then it becomes like, what are we looking for out of this wide receiver room on Saturday? And Tyquan Thornton's a guy that's been getting tons of attention in camp. And then rookie Jalen Royals, I think, are going to be the 2 guys that you really want to see them step up, because Royals kind of fits that Rice prototype and build. And then Tyquan Thornton might legitimately have some untapped potential that we just haven't seen so far in his NFL career.
Yeah, I wrote this in my newsletter this morning, and this is the most maddening thing ever. But when they signed Hollywood Brown, I think the first thing we all thought was, wow, Worthy, Brown, Rice. These 3 on the field at the same time. How are you going to be able to defend that? Brown gets hurt, right? So you're down to Rice and Worthy. Then Rice gets hurt for the whole year. Brown comes back, and you're still never able to see it. Now you enter training camp, and you'd at least hope to see it in the preseason. We all think Rice is going to be suspended, but now Rice is injured with a groin injury, and Brown has been out for a week with an ankle injury. So it's just worthy again. The whole thing that you hope that you'd have this year, at least in the preseason, to see, and then kind of tease it for whenever Rice gets back from whatever the suspension is. We were all hoping to see that, and you won't see it again on Saturday. And like, I'm left wondering, like, let's say Rice is, we'll throw a number out there. Let's say Rice is suspended for 4 or 5 games, and let's assume like Worthy can stay healthy like he did last year. Are we banking on the fact that Brown's going to be able to be on the field by the time Rice gets back? Like, are we ever going to see this trio on the field? I mean, it's been maddening. But yeah, but that leads us into the point you were making, Steve. Like, the depth of the wide receiver room matters. Like, does Juju still have juice? Jalen Royals is what I would imagine to be what the Chiefs are looking at, if he's ready and knows the playbook, a 1-for-1 replacement for Rice for whatever the amount of games that he misses. Tyquan Thornton, even before these injuries to Hollywood and to Rice, was getting reps with the first team. Like, I had him on my 53-man roster, with the first team because he's been playing so much with the first team. Now the injuries have allowed Jason Brownlee to get more time. And to me, he looks like what the Chiefs have wanted out of the Jody Forsons and the dreams of Justin Ross, that red zone target, one-on-one, big man, fade, go up and get it. And he's brought down a lot of those at camp. And so I wonder if Thornton and Brownlee and that could transition and play into, if they can bring those performances to the preseason game. What does it mean for Sky Moore and Nico Remigio, who again is now vying for a return spot with Brashard Smith? It's getting difficult with the uptick of Brownlee and Thornton to try to fit those two players on this team. And don't forget, like they always say this, Steve, because of this like deep wide receiver room, you're also auditioning for every team in the league. Like, maybe someone will need a returner like Remigio if you go Brashard Smith. Maybe someone could use Sky Moore at the back end of their room, and can you get a conditional 7th, 6th out of it? So kind of fascinating when it comes to the depth of the receiver room. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm excited to see what some of those guys can do with the opportunity on Saturday. And then really along the defensive line, don't need to see Chris Jones play a snap on Saturday. I think this game is all about like a player who seemingly, like, I don't know if we're quite at a point with Felix Anudike-Uzomah where we're like, is he actually going to make the roster? Like, I don't think we're quite at that point yet, but I think we can definitively say he's never going to be a guy that lives up to where he was taken in the NFL draft. And we've talked about it before. Like, Pete, there was a lot of guys the Chiefs wanted ahead of Felix Anudike-Uzomah in that draft. Just nobody managed to fall to them. And then they were interested in moving back and couldn't really get a deal going that they liked. And so they wind up just kind of reaching on a player, and it just hasn't really panned out at the NFL level. But then I think the most interesting guys are going to be the rookies, though, and the rookies who have made some noise in camp. And Omar Norman-Lott and Ashton Gillotte are guys that Chiefs fans are really excited to see on Saturday.
Yeah, I think they're hugely important for this year. I mean, it's just massive. The Chiefs needed pass rush help. I think they were fortunate to get Charles Omenihu back for cheap because he explored the market and it didn't match what he wanted, and so he returned. And really, if you just count him as just someone who's a returner, you really didn't add except for in the draft. And you take these two guys, 2 picks apart in Omar Norman-Lott and Ashton Gillotte. I think it's worth noting for your listeners that Norman-Lott probably won't be 100% for this game. He's been kind of limited at camp, and because of an ankle, I think he will play in some capacity. But if he isn't as dominant as maybe you thought he might be, just remember that he is dealing with something. Gillotte spent most of the beginning of camp with the second team, and then as it went on, Spags gave him more and more opportunities with the first team. I'm really eager to see what he looks like against other competition. I think this is a guy who could reasonably push like a Mike Dana for snaps, just because of what he can bring to the table in terms of a pass rusher. And so I think the Chiefs pass rush as a whole, especially last year, it just wasn't the same. And so, what will these guys bring to the table? How will they replace Turk Wharton, who went to the Panthers? Mike Pennell is interesting to me as well. I know it's a veteran, but like, what kind of juice does he have left to give in the defensive tackle room?
Yeah, and I think Gelati is really interesting because we've just Spags isn't a speed rusher guy. Like
No,
he wants defensive linemen with all the tools and the size and the strength and the ability to do everything and move all around the line. And so he is kind of like he's not the typical player that the Chiefs usually go after, but it's certainly something that we saw at points last season prior to them getting Charles Omenihu back, like when every offensive line was just triple teaming Chris Jones. The
right.
Chiefs just didn't have enough explosiveness along the defensive line.
Steve, I mean, you think about the Super Bowl, right? We talk about it so often, and it's painful for Chiefs fans, but they were rushing four all night, and they got 16 pressures on Patrick Mahomes. I think they sacked him 6 times. It is a game changer when you don't have to orchestrate blitzes to get pressure on the quarterback, and I think that was the goal of spending those 2 picks early on day 2 to get a little bit more pass rush juice from some young players. And man, if these 2 guys are as good as they've been advertised, to us by the personnel staff on draft day, and then some of the things that Steve Spagnuolo has been saying, it's just going to be a game changer for the whole year. Like, imagine if Patrick Mahomes can actually be up 10 with 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter instead of down 2 or up 1 holding the lead. Like, just some more comfortable Sundays. The Chiefs haven't had comfortable Sundays consistently in what feels like forever, and I think these guys are a big part of that, just holding the other team to fewer points.
It would be a huge win for the Chiefs and for us as people that cover the team, and for fans to not have to live and die in the last 2 minutes of the game.
In week 3, maybe the Giants can be down 14. You're a much better team. You have much better players. Maybe they should be down 14 in the fourth quarter instead of the Chiefs clinging to a 3-point lead while Russ Wilson pulls magic out of his hat. Or in the same stadium, Zach Wilson suddenly has the the Chiefs on the brink of losing. No, maybe you can actually beat down a team that you're supposed to beat down.
Yes, I am very much in favor of that this season. But last couple of things before we get out of here. I do think preseason week 1 is interesting for the secondary. If Christian Fulton gets activated from the pup late this week, obviously he's not going to play. He's limited practice. They're going to ease him back into things. He's got no training camp reps at all as he works his way back from that offseason procedure. But obviously he's going to change the rotation a little bit here once we get closer to the regular season. But I think preseason week 1 is really interesting for the secondary because I do think that there's some other guys here that could wind up being rotational players for the Chiefs or have an opportunity in this game to really look interesting. And maybe you see the Chiefs try to move a member of that secondary for a draft pick or something. Joshua Williams, who seemingly just can't get out of the Spags doghouse, but has been a serviceable player at times for the Chiefs, but just can't seem to crack the rotation anymore. I think that his size and ability that he's shown in the NFL could be something that you could flip for a late round draft pick. Chris Roland Wallace is another guy they're really complimentary of. We're excited to see what Noel Williams can do as a rookie. They do have some depth there, and I think there's some intrigue at least as to what we could see like into the second half on Saturday.
Without a doubt. And I think Josh Williams is playing for the other 31 teams. If you really think about the math here, at camp, Fulton has been out of the mix. He's got to have a roster spot. But you've had Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie. The second team has been Noah Williams and Nazeeh Johnson with Chris Roland Wallace. Man, Kevin Knowles sometimes gets undrafted free agent, kind of an unknown. Sometimes gets more time with the second team than Josh Williams. Josh Williams is kind of mixed in with the second team, but a lot of camp he's just been with the third team. And preseason is weird, right? Arizona could use a cornerback. They've had a couple injuries there. And so, if Joshua Williams plays well, I mean, maybe he's the one guy that that doesn't have to get back on the airplane. Maybe you just get a 7th-round pick for Josh Williams, and he goes to his new facility there. Like those things can happen, and like Josh Williams too. To me, at times looks better than Najee Johnson. I mean, who am I? I'm not. I think Steve Spagnuolo could be the best defensive coordinator of all
He looks
time.
better than Najee Johnson in the regular season.
No, I know. And so it's hard to question Spags. Like I think as highly about him defensively that I do Andy Reid offensively, but it does seem strange. I mean, it's just a guy that you wonder if it's in the meeting room, you wonder if it's assignments that we just can't see that Josh Williams just can't get a hold of. Like maybe it's an IQ thing to Spags, but certainly a player I think they're going to want to showcase and maybe move because I can't see him cracking a cornerback room even if they were to keep 6. I just can't see it happening right now. So we'll see what it means for his future.
There's a lot of cornerback needy teams too. Like the Miami Dolphins jump out as a team. Like after they traded Jalen Ramsey, on paper they have one of the worst secondaries in the NFL.
Yeah, like Joshua Williams could be a 3 or a 4 on a team, and I think there are even some teams in the league where he might start. So it's crazy that he's just like trapped at 7th in Kansas City.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the most interesting things to watch. But Pete, before we get out of here, so we got robbed of a punter battle in training camp where that was supposed to be a thing, and it just never manifested. And so now we know that Matt Araiza is going to be the Chiefs punter, but it does kind of seem like the starting return man is kind of up for grabs. I'm kind of interested to see what the rotation is there. I think Nico should be a front runner for that, but now with Tyquan Thornton and Rashard Smith maybe mixing in there, like it could legitimately be a camp battle that could be something to watch on Saturday.
Yeah, the rotation has been Remigio would take the first return, and then it's been Smith. Don't forget now, Steve, with a new kick return, there's 2 kick returners back there, and in the most recent practice, it was both. They had Remigio and Smith. I wonder about the punt returner. You mentioned Thornton is mixed in there. It's also Sky Moore is mixed in there. You've had the newcomer Kashawn Smith join the team midway through camp, and that'll probably be more of like a 3rd or 4th quarter thing. But there's a lot of guys that are trying to push their value. Returns for Nico are huge. I mean, if he basically needs to leave no doubt in the Chiefs' mind that no one is better than him in the returning. And I think there's an advantage there. Like he looked really good at the end of last year, pushed Mecole Hardman off the team completely and has been looking good at camp. If that translates to the preseason, maybe it starts to make the Chiefs think, okay, maybe we have to keep him as the 6th receiver. And what would that mean for a Brownlee who has looked pretty good? And so it's tough. I mean, you got to really just think about the roster as a whole, but I think there are a lot of hidden things to watch in this game on Saturday night.
He's Pete Sweeney. Follow all his coverage at arrowheadpride.com. You can follow him on Twitter at PGSween. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. I'll be back Saturday night with the post-game show live after the conclusion of the Chiefs and the Arizona Cardinals. And hopefully we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Thank you guys for subscribing to Foolish Club Media. All the support has been amazing heading into year number 2. And I will talk to you late Saturday night.